Philippine News Hub Updates. Kung bago ka pa lang sa channel ko, huwag kalimutang mag-subscribe at i-hit ang bell for more updates.
Very much, Mr. President. I think a lot of ground has been covered since 10 a.m. this morning, so I can assure you people that I'll be very brief, just on a few points that I want to be clarified on. Somebody from the Department of Agriculture should be able to answer this question. We are aware that in the DA Interagency Committee, in a letter dated February 1, 2021, made this recommendation to the Secretary of Finance. It stated that, quote, it does not recommend the immediate increase in the MAV in view of the parallel move to temporarily reduce the tariff on pork. The committee recommends that the DA monitors the immediate effects of the temporary reduction in tariff rate of pork, since this may render the need to increase the MAV unnecessary. It was further stated that, quote, if the department opts to invoke the MAV plus mechanism while the tariff modification process is ongoing, an additional MAV of about 100,000 metric tons may be a reasonable number to augment the supply. So this, the simple question that I ask is, between February 1 and March 26, is a total of 6 weeks, 7 weeks? What changed that? What circumstance changed that prompted you to recommend an increase in the MAV of over 380,000? What changed in circumstance? In 6 weeks' time, you increased the recommendation from 100,000 metric tons increase, which is, you know, even our chair of the secretary of the chair of the Committee of Agriculture, and from your presentation earlier, this would appear to be consistent with what you predicted to be the shortfall. Why was there a sudden change? And that is where questions are being raised, because given the statements here about what appears to be a favored group of importers, it would appear that the increase is prompted by reasons which we do not know, because in a matter of 6 weeks, you changed the level of the minimum access volume from 100,000 that you have recommended, and which appears to be within the range of the shortfall that we have heard in the past hour and the past 3 hearings, rather than 380,000. May I have an explanation of this?
Mr. Chair, yes. Let me give you the chronology of events on the increase in the MAV volume. And this chronology of events has already been submitted to the committee, but let me again explain that in January 6, Mr. Chair, an increase in the prices of pork was reported at the first DA Management Committee, okay? And with that spike in pork prices, the Secretary directed concerned units to assess the situation and study measures to address the problem. And in January 21, the Secretary, because of the continuous increases in pork price, created an interagency committee, technical working group, to really assess the situation, ascertain the shortage in terms of volume, and then the committee that was created submitted a report to the Secretary, and again this was discussed at the MANCOM. And in that level, Mr. Chair, the MANCOM recognized that there is really a deficit of 388,000 metric tons. And with that level of deficit as submitted by the interagency committee, this was the basis for our recommendation for the increase in the MAB allocation, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. You are telling this committee that when you made that recommendation on February 1, 2021, you did not yet know of the extent of the shortfall, and you only realized it a few weeks after?
There were progressives. Yeah.
Okay, you know, an ordinary mind will not accept that as a valid explanation. You are in possession of all the data, and a reasonable mind would tell you that, or a reasonable mind would conclude that indeed you knew of the levels of the shortfalls as of February 1, and in fact, you said 100,000 metric tons, and suddenly you changed it to 380,000 metric tons, or a threefold increase within a period of 6 weeks. We do not know. That's why we do not find it credible, because you're saying in a period of 6 weeks, you realize that there was a need for a higher volume now. So let us leave it at that. I think that is a matter that we will now have to assess when we make our committee report. Now, can you tell me, okay, the most recent example of the issue of removing the quantitative restriction was on the rice tarification. As we recall, before the system was the monopoly of the NFA in importing rice. We removed that monopoly. We allowed everybody to import rice, and with that increased volume, was the tariff also increased? Just for recollection, Mr. Secretary, was the tariff for rice increased when we tarified the rice importation?
The tariff was maintained. The tariff was maintained. It was maintained at 35% for ASEAN suppliers and 50% for outside ASEAN.
Yes. Now,
because that is the law, the agreement.
yes.
That is the agreement.
My point is, were we able to lower the price
of rice?
Yes.
We were the prices of rice to the consumer went down because
20%. It went down 20% and it stayed down.
Okay, and it stayed down and went down and stayed down because of the removal of these restrictions, of the quantitative restrictions.
Yes.
Now, shouldn't the same circumstance apply in the case of pork? Without touching the tariff or reducing it to such level as 5% and 10%, wouldn't the price, given this experience that we have, if we maintain the tariff and adjust the minimum access volume to more reasonable levels, or even just for purposes of discussion, allow 380,000 metric tons increase. Would that not reduce the prices of pork?
We're not sure. But we need to be sure, Mr. Senator, because the actual increase in price of pork drove up our inflation rate even higher than rice did at its peak in September of 2018. So it's more of an emergency, and it is an emergency at a very, very difficult time when you are suffering also from the effects of the lockdowns due to the COVID. So
We're just
so the decision, I suppose, of the Tariff Commission was to take no chances.
yes. You know, you're making assumptions, whereas I am basing my proposition on what the actual experience was when we tariffied rice importation. And in that particular case, excuse me, sir. Excuse me. The reason why we are adverting to this is we stand to lose over 13 billion in revenues. And in fact, in the rice tarification program, we realized, 10 billion or 20 billion because we removed the quantitative restriction and just tarified the importation. And we realized, I think, anywhere from 15 to 20 billion as a revenue. That's the example and that's the experience that we are citing to justify the proposition that, okay, maybe we can re-examine the MAV, but do not touch the tariff rates.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. Actually, the numbers are 30 billion for 2 years.
Yes.
And that money was directed as the Senate, as Senator Villar put in the law, 10 billion of that is guaranteed for the modernization of the rice farming. So that money has been used and definitely has been used very well because rice production actually went up in 2019 and 2020. Rice production actually went up. So that works.
Yeah, if it worked then, why couldn't it work now? That's what we're saying. In other words, Mr. Secretary, what I think I can speak for myself, and I think a number of us are of the same view. If we just work on a more reasonable level of MAV, but not touch on the tariff, that may that can and then so generate about 13, not lose about 13 billion in tariff, and that will encourage our hog raisers to continue their production and aim for a higher production. And then we achieve, as we have achieved in rice tarification, we have achieved a price stability that is within the range of what we want. Isn't that a proposal that is worth?
And may I add, Mr. President, may I add to you, Mr.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we achieve what we want and the rice farmers are happy. Parang masaya sila ngayon eh. Tuwan-tuwa nga ako sa kanila kasi ang saya-saya nila. Sana ma-achieve natin itong gagawin natin sa hog and yung ating hog farmer happy din. Oo.
Yes.
Yun ang i-aim natin. Happy din. Eh ngayon galit na galit sila eh. Kaya uwalis ako dito eh. Oo.
Mr. Senate President, there is one big difference. Okay, there was no disease problem in the rice. number one. And secondly, you can plant rice and harvest rice within a 4-month period. We have a serious disease problem in the pork situation, and it will take some time before you can repopulate. So we are saying, let's give it a year to encourage the stabilization of the prices through importation over a year period. And in that year, that is when we bring back the prices of the tariffs, as well as address the MAV issue. So that is the very big difference. It takes time to repopulate. And we think that this gap in the production of pork is not going to be closed in a short period of time because of the prevalence and extent of the ASF problem.
Yes. Well, Mr. President, it is obvious that there is a gap between our opinion and that of the Secretary insofar as the levels of the minimum access volume is concerned and insofar as the tariff rates is concerned. So this is a basic difference of opinion, and each of us would have to make a judgment. I'm sure all of us are motivated by good intentions. It's just that we could not agree with each other. And therefore, we leave it at that for us to decide. I'm trying to figure out a compromise between the Department of Finance and the Senate, but apparently that does not work insofar as Secretary Dominguez is concerned.
No, Mr. Senator, my mind is open. We always make judgments based on evidence. Okay, we are asking for time to see this thing work, and if it doesn't work, I'm not one who is married to this idea. And if there are better ideas out there, I am certainly open to that. I am not blind to the fact that, hey, this may not work, but I'm telling you, if we don't do anything, for sure it's not going to work. In other words, prices will not go down. But again, I'm not talking of me, myself, but I'm telling you, it's the mind of the EDC. The EDC, the Economic Development Cluster, is very open because all of us make our recommendations and decisions based on analysis of facts. So please don't think that the door is closed. We appreciate the opportunity to exchange ideas with you and with the industry.
That's what we wanted to hear. Congratulations and very good, Secretary Dominguez. Unlike what we're hearing from the other department.
I am hard-headed, but I am not stupid, okay? At least I try not to be stupid. Okay?
All right, very good. Thank you very much.
Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat, mga kababayan. Sa ating mga kababayan po dito sa Pilipinas, magandang hapon. At sa ating mga kababayan, sa ating mga minamahal na OFWs sa iba't ibang bahagi ng mundo, magandang hapon po. Magandang araw po sa inyo. Andito po tayo sa labas ng Office of the Ombudsman. Si Peter, pinafile ko po doon sa kaso kong sinampa laban kay Chief PNP Debold Sinas. Ito po yun. Kinasuhan ko po siya, sinampahan ko po siya ng kasong grave misconduct, gross neglect of duty, conduct prejudicial to the best interest of the service, violation of Section 5, Paragraph A and E ng Republic Act 6713. Ito po yung Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards of Public Officials and Employees at violation of Section 1, Paragraph B ng Presidential Decree number 1829. Ito po yung obstruction of criminal prosecution. So, 3 administrative cases, 2 criminal na kaso. Ito po ay dahil sunulatan ko po si Chief PNP Sinas noong January 15, 2021. At lumagpas na po ang 3 buwan, hindi po niya ako sinagot. para po sa inyong kaalaman mga kababayan, sa Section 5, Paragraph A and Paragraph E, sa Paragraph A, obligado po nakalagay, all public officials are under obligation. Obligado po silang sumagot sa ating mga sulat sa loob ng 15 araw mula ng pagkatanggap nito. So, pag sumulat po tayo sa mga government officials po natin at mga empleyado, obligado po silang sumagot sa atin sa loob. Loob ha, hindi lalagpas. Hindi lalagpas ng 15 working days. Working days, hindi po calendar days. Iba po yung calendar days. Ito po yung araw-araw. Working Monday to Friday. Hindi po bibilangin ang Saturday at Sunday. So malamang na sa mga 3 weeks po yung 15 working days. 3 buwan na po ang lumipas, hindi po ako sinagot ni Chief PNP Sinas. Hiningi ko po sa kanya ang kopya ng Daily Intelligence Brief mula kina Serafin Pitalio, Colonel Serafin Pitalio, dito sa kaso ni Richard Santillan, yung personal aide ko po at bodyguard na pinatay po, pinahirapan, pinaglaruan at pinatay ng 20 pulis ng PNP. Hiningi ko po ito kay Chief PNP Sinas dahil gumawa po ng incident report. No, hindi. Update report si Police General, Brigadier General Carranza. At doon po sa kanyang report, ginamit po niya itong particular na Daily Intelligence Brief as basis. So sabi po niya, ito po yung police report ko sa pagkamatay ni Richard Santillan. Ito po'y base sa Daily Intelligence Brief noong December 4, 2018. Pero po, nakita ko po yung content po ng Daily Intelligence Brief na dumating dito sa Campo Crame, iba po sa sinulat ni General Carranza. Dinagdagan po ni General Carranza yung kanyang report. Kumbaga, kung ito ang sinabi ng Daily Intelligence Brief ni Pitalio na umabot dito sa Campo Crame, dumating sa opisina ni Chief PNP, iba po ang nilagay ni Carranza dun sa kanyang report. Dinagdagan po niya, diniin po niya yung sasakyan ko. Diniin niya yung sasakyan ko na di umano ay sangkot sa Highway Boys Group para po magkaroon ng justification na patayin nila si Richard Santillan. So dahil dyan, nilabag po ni Carranza ang Article 171 Paragraph 4 ng Revised Penal Code. Ito po yung falsification by a public officer. Falsification by a public officer or employee. Kasi untruthful statement in a narration of facts. Yun ang ibig sabihin ng Article 171 Paragraph 4. Untruthful statement in a narration of facts. Dinagdagan po niya. So naging false na po yung kanyang report. So hiningi ko po yung Daily Intelligence Brief. Para ma-submit ko po ito bilang kaso laban kay General Carranza. Hindi po binigay ni Chief PNP Sinas. So dahil hindi niya binigay, hindi niya ako sinagot, hindi niya sinagot, ang violation po niya, Section 5 Paragraph A at Section 5 Paragraph E. Ang E is all public officials are under obligation to provide, to produce or give access to public documents. So pag hiningi mo po yung public documents, obligado din po ang public officials na ibigay po sa inyo. Obligado ang public officials na ipa-inspect po sa inyo. The only requirement or limitation, restriction, it must be during office hours. Yun lang ang requirement. Palaging sinasabi ng pulis, hindi ko raw sinusunod yung kanilang PNP Freedom of Information rules. Administrative regulation yan lang yan. Republic Act 6713 is a law. Hindi pwedeng mas mataas ang PNP manual kaysa Republic Act 6713. So walang ibang requirement with respect to Section 5 Paragraph E. This is access to public documents, except lang reasonable working hours or office hours. Doon lang, yun lang ang requirement. So dahil dito, nilabag po niya ang batas, grave misconduct. Hindi po niya ako sinagot, gross neglect of duty. Dahil sa kanyang mga paglabag, conduct prejudicial to the best interest of the service. Tapos yung criminal violation ng Section 5 Paragraph A, administrative pala ito, Section 5 Paragraph A and E. Tapos criminal violation yung Section 1B of Presidential Decree 1829. So ito po yung kaso na isinampa ko, pinakita ko lang po sa inyo kanina yung filing kasi gwardiya lang po ang tumatanggap dito sa Office of the Ombudsman kasi wala pong mga empleyado rito. So, tinatanggap lang po ng gwardiya. So, pinakita ko po sa inyo na i-final ko po kasi hindi po nila tatatakan pero tatanggapin nila. So, at least may prueba kung kinasuhan ko si Chief PNP Sinas. And to Chief PNP Sinas, sir, kahit ordinaryong tao lang po ako at wala akong kapangyarihang politikal, wala akong kapangyarihan ng armas, hindi po ko aatras sa inyo. Kapag nilabag po ninyo ang batas, mananagot din po talaga kayo. At dahil itong mga wag po ninyo akong sisihin, sir. I am just merely reacting. Kung hindi lang pinatay ng mga pulis ninyo si Richard Santillan, hindi niyo pinahirapan, hindi niyo pinaglaruan, hindi ako magagalit sa inyo. At because you did that, at ang sisihin mo, sir, ay si General Carranza, ha? Yung pulpul na general na yan, yun ang sisihin mo. At yung pulpul na intelligence officer na si Colonel Pitalio, yung dalawang na yan, yung tandem na yan, kung ako lang, kung nasa harap ko lang yung dalawang general at colonel na yan, pag-uumpugin ko yung mga ulo na yan, walang laman ng mga utak ng mga taong yan. So wag po ninyo akong sisihin. Ginapang po nila yung mga kaso ko sa National Prosecution Service. Alam ko po yan. Ginapang nila dahil takot silang ma-issuean sila ng warrant of arrest tulad ng kanilang mga tao. So ito tit for tat to. Kung anong gagawin nila, bebeltahan ko kayo. And it so happens na ikaw po yung nakita ko. Sorry na lang, magre-retire na po kayo next week. Final ko po ito ngayon para hindi naman ako maging killjoy. At any rate, sir, sagutin nyo lang po ito. Kayo na po yung pangatlong Chief PNP na kinasuhan ko. Si Albayalde, si Gamboa at kayo. Kung sinagot nyo lang ako, wala akong dahilan para kasuhan ko kayo. The other one, mga kababayan, kinasuhan ko rin si Police Captain Jason Tan Manuel. Ito yung chief ng Firearms Licensing Division. Hiningi ko po sa kanya yung dokumento doon sa dalawang armas na ginamit ng mga pulis na pumatay kay Richard. 20 po silang pulis na pumatay kay Richard. Pinahirapan, pinaglaruan, pinatay. 20 po sila, ha? Pero ang ginamit po nilang armas ay 24. Mas marami pa ang armas nilang dala kaysa kanilang mga katawan. So ibig sabihin, ang intensyon ay hindi huhulihin si Richard, kundi papatayin talaga. And the evidence shows na tinorture nila. Now, ngayon, sumobra ang baril nila. Sumulat sa akin si Police Brigadier General Domingo Cabillan ng Logistics Directorate ng PNP. At sinabi niya, yung dalawang baril dyan, Glenn Chong, na sinulat mo, hindi galing sa PNP yan. So, hindi lang sumobra ang baril nila, kasi 20 lang sila, ang baril nila ay 24, sumobra, may dalawa pang baril na hindi galing sa PNP stock. So ito yung hiningi ko kay Police Captain Jason Tan Manuel. Ayaw niyang ibigay sa akin kasi ma-identify natin kung sino may hawak nun. Kasi meron kaming copy ng crime lab report na nandoon yung mga serial numbers. Sino ang nagbigay ng mga baril na to, sinong mga akusado. Ayaw niyang ibigay sa amin para hindi namin ma-identify. So ngayon, kinasuhan ko si Police Captain Manuel ng grave misconduct, conduct prejudicial to the best interest of the service, violation of Section 5, Paragraph E, access to public documents, hindi niya binigay sa akin yung public documents na hinihingi ko. Violation of Article 226 of the Revised Penal Code, ito yung concealment of documents. And violation of Section 1, Paragraph B of Presidential Decree 1829, obstruction of justice, concealment of paper, documents or paper with the intent to prevent their availability in the prosecution or investigation of criminal offenses. So, yan po mga kababayan. Gusto ko pong ipakita sa mga salaring ito, sa kanilang mga opisyal, hindi po ako titigil. Kahit gagapangin niyo yung mga kaso ko, pinapag-dismiss ninyo, bibiltahan ko kayo, babalik at babalikan ko kayo. So, yun lang po mga kababayan, report ko po sa inyo. At muli, Chief PNP, pasensya na po. Hindi nyo naman po ako sinagot, kasalanan mo po yan. At nag-react lang po ako sa ginawa ng mga pulis ninyo. So, tandaan po ninyo, hindi po ibig sabihin na dahil kayo Chief PNP, kayo'y mga general, matatakot na po kami. Tandaan nyo ang pangalang Glenn Chong. Hindi ako matatakot sa inyo. Maraming salamat po mga kababayan.